So I'm back in Bristol for the Christmas holidays. I'm in my old room, which is really exciting. It's always nice to return to my roots and to be back in Bristol. I wanted to make a quick video today to talk about Christmas and to talk about mental health around Christmas. It's a big topic. It's a big topic because even though it's a beautiful time and it's a time to spend with loved ones and a time to kind of chill and socialize and have fun, and do all of these things, it's still quite a stressful time of year, particularly for those who are already struggling with their mental health. Now, I remember in years gone by when my anxiety was high and when I was feeling particularly depressed, Christmas was actually a time where I felt that these symptoms were even more intense because there's a lot of socializing, there's a lot of pressure around being happy and being merry. I was in Bristol yesterday, and as I was walking through the markets, getting some last minute presents, there was a guy who was talking, asking people questions. I'm not sure what about, but I walked past him, and then after me, he said to someone else, like, "Oh, you look happy," or like, "You're in the Christmas spirit," and he said it in a sarcastic way, and it reminded me of this. I mean, firstly, you never know what someone's experiencing, so it's always risky to kind of imply that someone should be happy. But also, there is this inherent pressure or expectation around being happy at Christmas time. So in this video, I'm just going to share a few tips to help alleviate a little pressure around the Christmas period. So the first one is related to perfectionism. Particularly around Christmas, there are ideas of what the perfect Christmas should be. Now, this is mostly related to should statements. This is what I find. Sorry if the camera's shaking a bit as well. I'm holding my iPhone. It's imperfect, which is apt. Imperfection around this time of year always linked to this idea of the day should go a certain way. I should be feeling happy because it's Christmas. I should feel like socializing. Or many different should statements that create an expectation on ourselves on how we should be. Now, what this does is it actually takes us away from how we are genuinely feeling. So what I would recommend is just bringing a bit of awareness to the should statements that you have and just checking in. You know, what expectations do you have on yourself about how you're feeling? Can you challenge these statements and have a bit more self-compassion? So if you are feeling particularly anxious, you might notice a belief that says, I shouldn't be feeling anxious, I'm just with my family, it's quite a relaxed environment. To challenge that, and to say, it's okay to be feeling anxious. If you have an anxiety disorder, it's not just going to go away over Christmas. There's a lot more pressure to socialize, pressure to be a certain way. So have compassion. And this is a cognitive element, to challenge these statements. In the terms of mindfulness, then it's a case of just feeling into the way that we're feeling and to just be with how we are and to have a sense of ease. If there's anxiety there, to not resist it, to be with it, and if we can, to express it to other people. Step number 2 is setting healthy boundaries. This is particularly useful around family. If you live away from home, you might come back and there are old patterns that can form. Now, if we don't set boundaries and if we don't express what we find difficult or how we would like to be, then that really primes a landscape for resentment and frustration. I can talk from experience. Like, I love my family to bits, but in the past, I found that I started to get frustrated because they talk a lot, right? And I love them for it, but ultimately I'm a lot more, quiet, right, around the house. And there was a year where I felt a building sense of frustration around the level of interaction and noise. And really, I think one year it got to the point where I kind of snapped and I didn't handle it in the right way. But that opened the door to a conversation where I basically said, look, it doesn't mean that I love you any less, but I require more quiet time. And if I go away and spend time in my room, or if I'm not interacting, it's really nothing personal. And it was quite difficult for me to do that. It was difficult for me to set that boundary. But when I did, it became much healthier, the frustration was less, and it opened up a clearer dialogue around how can we communicate, And it also opened the door to some humour around the kind of difference between how I am and how my family are. So I would say step number 2 is setting healthy boundaries. Of course, like I understand some family constellations don't necessarily allow for the kind of expression, but ultimately, if your boundaries aren't fully respected, then you have a decision to make around obligations, because there are no obligations. You know, there are no obligations. And if you find yourself in a situation where your boundaries are severely disrespected, now of course we have to compromise around Christmas, but if you feel that it's very detrimental to your mental health, then you have a decision to just remove yourself from that situation. But hopefully, communicating boundaries in a healthy way will be beneficial to your mental health and allow you to keep grounded in yourself and express authentically. Now, another tip is to look after your physical health. Of course, at Christmas time, we indulge, we drink, we eat everything that we can get our hands on. But it's still important over a prolonged period of time to just check in, with how we're feeling physically. And if you are prone to depression or anxiety, I would really assess the role of alcohol. I know in the past that I don't drink now, but when I did, I almost felt a sense of anxiety before Christmas, just knowing that I'd be seeing a lot of people, that there'd be a lot of socializing around alcohol, and then that kind of creates almost like a snowball effect where I'd have a hangover, feel more anxious, more depressed, then I drink again. And you know, by the end of the Christmas break then, I was feeling kind of worn out and frazzled and wasn't making the most of it because of this. And I know it can be really difficult. It can be really difficult to express if you don't want to drink, again, because of the peer pressure. But referring back to step 2, with setting boundaries, this is one of the most important boundaries that you can set. Limiting alcohol if you feel it's necessary is huge. You know, getting outside, going on a walk, going to the gym if you can find time for that, and just looking after your physical body, because the more you can do that, the more it will benefit your mental health too. Last but not least, step number 4 in this very rushed, homemade by all accounts video. Step number 4 is to embrace impermanence. Now, what I mean by that is, right, when you're younger, and I remember when I was young, and you have an advent calendar, the build up to Christmas seems to go on forever, and you know, all the Christmas music starts in like September or August or July nowadays, and it just feels like it builds and builds and builds and builds, and there's all this pressure that builds, and all of a sudden, you know, it gets to Boxing Day, and it's like, oh, Christmas is done already, it's over until next year. This is really important to bear in mind if you're feeling anxious or particularly concerned, you know, about the build up or stressed or whatever. So just remember that it is going to come by and it's going to pass in no time. And on one hand, this can alleviate pressure. This sense of impermanence can alleviate pressure around the stress and the feeling of anxiety, knowing that it will soon, you know, be yesterday, then it'll be last week, and it'll be last year. But also, it opens up the door to gratitude. Because when we embrace that this is just merely a passing moment that will come and go in no time, then we can really just tune in to just being as present as we can throughout the day, and just taking away some of the pressure, so it doesn't feel this huge fixed point, you know, that we're this huge kind of barrier in our mind's eye of the future. That's like, oh, it's Christmas, I can't see beyond Christmas. It's this huge thing, when in reality, before we know it, it'll be January, and then Christmas will be a thing of the past. So your mind will try and build it up as this huge thing, and you know, the anxiety will build around this huge, fixed, seemingly immovable part of the calendar. But in reality, like everything else, it will come and it will go. I really wanted to share this with you before Christmas. I'm actually just recording this in between my breakfast and setting off for football. I'll be watching Bristol Rovers this afternoon take on Peterborough, which is very exciting. Yeah, and I wanted to thank you. I wanted to thank you for the support. I want to wish you a wonderful Christmas, a mindful Christmas. I hope that you find time to check in with yourself and to spend time with loved ones, and to feel hopefully a sense of ease at this time of the year, to move beyond the pressure, and to just enjoy it. And just, you know, enjoy it, and to be with yourself and be with others, and to, yeah, to reflect and to be sentimental if necessary, because it is an interesting time of year. And I think this is also, for me, a time where I feel reflective. Those of you might have seen a recent email and Facebook post about how I've been feeling. But I am starting to feel much better, which is good. I feel like I'm coming through this cycle, looking forward to 2020. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for supporting Mind That Ego through 2019. I will be back in 2020 with much more content. I love you. I love your support. It keeps me going also. Have a wonderful Christmas, an excellent New Year, and I will speak to you soon.